Alrighty, hey yo, what is up, Knights? Just Rick here, back with episode 13 of the Arad Airways podcast. Now, guys, it's kind of weird how we've gotten 13 episodes into this, but I started this series, I want to say a couple years ago, so we really have been really slow on the release of this podcast series. I want to be more consistent on that, so hopefully, whenever there's big content updates, I can do a podcast. I think this is a perfect time to do it. Today is November, the start of November here in 2020, and we have gotten a lot of stuff since the last podcast. Just to kind of recap, in the last podcast, P-War Challenge Mode had just gotten released, and that was an option for us at the high-end game. Oculus Hard Mode had just gotten released, and a lot of characters had been getting their third awakenings. Characters, I think that at the time, the male gunner was the last one to get his awakening. Since then, we actually haven't gotten that many more awakenings. I think we got Female Fighter, which I was very excited for. But in terms of, actual awakenings, we've kind of put that on the back burner, because instead what we've gotten is Sirocco Raid, and that is probably more important than the 3As because it applies to everybody, and it's something that we can strive towards instead of just something that we can hope for, like the awakening. So Sirocco Raid did get released, and that is extremely exciting. Obviously, we're going to be spending a long time talking about Sirocco Raid, but on top of that, guys, at the start of November, like it is every year, we do have Black Friday sales. At least part one of generally two parts of the Black Friday sales, and there's some nice items in there, some scam items in there. We'll talk about that in this podcast. And lastly, guys, I think the last topic I want to talk about is my involvement so far in the content creator program. It's something that we have had for a couple months now. I think this is getting close to 3 months that we've had the program. I want to talk about my opinions on it, what we have seen thus far, and there are some things to talk about. I don't want to harp on it too much, but suffice it to say, being a content creator for much longer than the program is itself, I do want to give my opinions from, I guess, somebody who has been involved in and outside of it in terms of the content creator program. So anyway, guys, with that being said, let's go ahead and talk about what I'm sure you probably all want to hear about, Sirocco Raid. Alrighty, guys, the first segment of this podcast, I want to talk about Sirocco Raid. Man, let me tell you, it's kind of like the hallmark of the level cap, right? We have had so many level caps at this point, right? When the game got released, we didn't have any raids. It was like 70 cap. Then Anton came out, and that was 85 cap raids. You had to gear up and do all that. We had Luke. Then we had, that was a long time before we got something else. We got Fiend War, Prey, and finally, guys, Sirocco. And we've had level caps all throughout that. We have been just striving, and we've been in 100 cap for several months now. And, I've already talked and harped about how great 100 cap is in terms of gearing and the ways that you can build up gears and strong gear. The problem is when you have really good systems of gearing up, it kind of puts a lot of pressure into the developers into making content for that gear. And that's kind of the one main concern I had with 100 cap is that, yes, the gear is awesome. Yes, it's really kind of easy to gear up in this cap, but the scaling of the gear and the content that you can do with the gear is dwindling as you keep making the power scaling this high. I mean, no other content really is going to challenge you with the gear that you have. And Sirocco, it was going to be that thing. Sirocco is that thing. I'm telling you right now, Sirocco is the challenge that we've been waiting for in 100 cap, and we've been waiting for some of us for a long time. I remember when Oculus came out and somebody already had like a full epic set. I'm like, dude, that guy is like probably Sirocco ready, and it's only been 2 weeks into the cap. This is crazy. So we've been several months into 100 cap. I'm happy that Sirocco got released, if for no other reason than just to give us content to do with our high-level gear. You could argue, we've had Oculus Hard. You could do that every day if you want. Well, the problem is Oculus Hard was more of supplemental content and not anything to actually improve your gear. It's more of a method, a means that you can use to kind of gear up your alts a little bit faster. Personally, I haven't found much use out of it. It's not like it's very hard to do. Once you're really strong, you can really do that in like 1 second. Basically, it can become a daily altogether, but you do have to coordinate with 4 people. Anyway, I don't want to talk about Oculus Hard. I talked about that in the last podcast. I want to talk about Sirocco Raid, guys. First, like I said, I'm really glad that we finally have content to do, okay? And my opinions, just to get it right off the bat, my opinions of Sirocco Raid are very, very, very high, okay? We did this on the stream. I want to do it again here. What are my rankings of the raids now that we've had Sirocco for a couple weeks, and what are my opinions? I might still be in the honeymoon phase. Maybe I'll get tired of this raid after a while, but guys, I'm going to put Sirocco raid as the #1 raid that we have gotten in DFO straight up, okay? It's the best raid that we've gotten. If I could list the other raids really quick, though, just off the top of my head, okay, I'm going to say Sirocco, then followed closely by Prey Raid. I actually did really like Prey Raid. A lot of people did not like it. Followed by Anton Raid. I think when Anton got released and we were doing it consistently, that was a lot of fun. Then followed by Fiend War Raid, my 4th. And then the 5th raid that I would say is going to be last place, definitely, without a doubt, Luke Raid, and basically 90 cap in general. Anything associated with 90 cap can just go F right off. But Sirocco Raid, #1 raid we've had thus far, and for so many reasons, okay? But yeah, guys, I really do love the raid. If you want to know what my current progress is with the raid, just to tell you guys my little experience with it, I have about 6 guaranteed Sirocco ready characters, potentially 8 if they want to take my really cut line characters, which I never want to raid with. But I have ran this raid, guys, 24 times, okay? We've ran it 24 times. I have not gotten a single fucking cold flip yet, but I have ran it 24 times. I have hosted my own guild raid 10 of those times, and we have only failed, or I have only joined a raid that has failed 1 time, and that was one of the ones that I hosted, unfortunately. But aside from that, guys, I mean, I think we're very, very comfortable as a guild, and basically in pubs. I think people are getting a lot more comfortable with this raid, a lot more so than other raids in the past, especially Prey. Dude, Prey was so devastating. People were getting wrecked for like weeks. People were failing, booming, boom, boom after boom, and Sirocco is definitely not like that. But before we talk about the pros and cons about the raid itself, let me look at the raid from a much higher level view, because I know not everybody is able to do Sirocco raid right away. They're not going to be able to. There's only a small portion of us who are even ready to do it, and I know everybody else is still probably trying to gear up right now. So let me tell you what the purpose is and what you kind of get out of Sirocco raid if you're not there already, okay? There are 4 pieces of gear that we are farming here in Sirocco raid, okay? How it works is essentially you have a weapon that you can farm, and you also have a ring, sub-equipment, and pants that you can farm, and those constitute, there are 5 different sets for the pants, ring, and sub-equipment set, and then the weapon constitutes its own basically set effect as well, has a single set effect, and then can also synergize with any of the other sets effects as well. So essentially what you're doing is farming 4 pieces, which are going to be endowed on top of the gear that you already have, and that is one thing I want to highlight about this raid. Is very unique. It's the first raid that we've had where you're not necessarily farming gear to replace the gear that you have, okay? This is more like an augmentation, an upgrade to the gear that you already have, okay? So you are not going to be replacing any gear, you're going to be upgrading the gear you already have. And because of this reason, okay, this is something that we've never had in a raid before, okay? Almost every other raid that we've had before, it's been a direct upgrade into the best in slot gear. It is no longer the case with Sirocco raid, okay? With this raid, it is an augmentation on top of the gear you already have. So basically what I'm saying here, guys, is if you don't come into this raid with the best in slot gear or the gear set that you want to rock when you're at the end game, you aren't necessarily done with Hells, okay? 2+2s, Guide of Wisdoms, Hells, all of those things, you still have to keep doing them, because Sirocco does not replace any of your gear slots. It only empowers the gear slots that you already have. So you're gonna have to do Sirocco on top of your Hells if you're not done with them, or if you don't have, you know, your proper setup yet. If you don't have a mythic, you're definitely not done. So what I'm saying here, guys, is Sirocco for the first time isn't necessarily the be all end all of best in slot. Yes, these are additional, basically 4 additional pieces of gear you have to get, but this is on top of the gear you already have. So that is how this raid works. I really love that as a gearing system, because it doesn't allow you to just buy raids and immediately, if you're lucky, get strong. Okay, no, you have to gear up. You have to gear up. There should be really no people buying Sirocco, because if you're buying Sirocco, even if you get all the gear, what are you going to put it on? You need the gear, dude. So basically, if you're not ready for Sirocco, you're really not ready for Sirocco. You can't just buy it and be ready. You have to be ready for Sirocco. Make sure you're strong enough for the raid before you even consider doing it. And really, I know, like I said in 100 cap, like I said earlier, it's not that hard to do. But anyway, guys, my pros and cons, the specifics about why I love this raid. First, let's talk about the pros, guys, okay? First is the leniency in terms of covering for other people, okay? This can be in terms of the lives that you get and or failing dungeons. It's just a lot more lenient. You know, you can fail a gimmick and still have a chance at clearing the dungeon. You can fail the dungeon and still have a chance of clearing the raid. Let me tell you the main issue about Prey Raid, the raid that we just had prior in 95 cap. The main issue with that raid is that if you failed your dungeon, which was highly likely, if you wiped, you only had 2 resurrections, you basically could fail the whole dungeon if you just wipe a gimmick. If you fail the dungeon, then you might fail the whole raid. That's kind of how it worked. You can just boom the whole raid. You know, if you fail the wrong dungeon, if you fail a sanctum, that just leaves more time for intercepts to get hit. And if you fail garden, you don't have the damage buff and you're going to get hit with the intercepts and the whole raid is basically done, okay? You don't have that hard penalty for failing dungeons and you have more opportunity in terms of your lives, in terms of how much time you have. That's another thing, is that you're not really, unlike Prey Raid, where you were limited by Slenicon's HP, here you're only really limited by your time. And so if you fail a dungeon, it just costs more time. On top of that, other parties can cover for you if you fail. So if you just like, oh dude, I can't do this, I'm not good enough, or if I don't have enough damage, another party who is stronger or maybe a little bit better at the gimmicks can go and cover for you, and it's not that big a deal because you have, again, a lot of leniency in this raid. So that's one thing that I really like about this raid. You can have the opportunity to recover from, just basic things that are going to happen in a raid. You're going to fail sometimes. You're going to die. It's just really nice to know that, okay, well, I don't have to boom the raid just because we failed one dungeon. It's not like it's detrimental to us so bad that we can't recover from it. So that's my number one. I really like the leniency of this raid. Alrighty guys, the next thing that I really like about this raid is the equal balance of the roles and expectations that parties have with a lot of varying dungeons. If you guys don't know how the raid is kind of set up, we have red and orange parties, which are generally your stronger parties, okay? And then you have your yellow and green parties, which are generally, relatively speaking, your weaker parties. And the raid itself is actually built around this concept. Yes, it is a little bit standard that most raid leaders set up their parties that way, but the raid itself is actually built around this aspect, right? If you have a really strong red and orange party, the raid will go faster because it's kind of up to them to clear dungeons to pass on to the next phase. And the yellow and green parties are generally supplementary, making sure the raid doesn't fail, boosting up those other parties. And the dungeon difficulty is kind of balanced in accordance to that. And it's really cool how they've designed it. And I think it's really balanced around this fact. I mean, it's not necessary that you have 4 strong parties and they all have to be uber strong. You can kind of build your parties, bring along people that have varying levels of power, and kind of utilize this kind of hierarchy system to ensure that everybody can get a clear. Not everybody has to be hyper optimized, strongest party that you can get. No, you just need a couple parties that are strong, and that leaves potentially a little bit weaker people. I'm not going to say like, hey, you can't come into Sirocco just being completely sandbagged, but I'm saying you don't have to be as hyper geared as some of the people that are in your red and orange parties. But it is really cool that they have that distinction, and it does make a appearance in the raid itself. The next thing I really love about Sirocco raid, guys, is the slow-mo and its usage. Oh my god, this is such a cool gimmick. It does explain why we had to get the 64-bit client, because it is very, I can only assume, pretty memory intensive or whatever. But what it does, it basically, the party leader has an option to utilize the slow-mo. He builds up slow-mo anytime they're fighting a boss, and then you have the option to utilize it, which can be used to either dodge certain attacks or extend groggy phases. Now, that is obviously really awesome, the slow-mo, but it also is kind of a responsibility that the party leader has to learn how to utilize, because there is some situations where you can completely boom the party, or if you don't manage the slow-mo properly, you could just fail the gimmick entirely. So it is something that is fun, but it's also really important that you utilize properly. And I really do love that there is another aspect aside from just playing your character well. There's another kind of gimmick that you have to kind of get good at and practice to be successful in this raid, which I really do like that. And in some cases, the slow-mo is absolutely pivotal in order to, get enough time for groggy or to dodge attacks, which I think is really well integrated in this raid. Next, I really do think there are at least a couple very interesting boss fights. I didn't think it just by looking at the design of these characters, but these two slime lolies that are on here are some of the coolest bosses that I have seen in DFO. Very unique. I love whenever they put a lot of character into their design of, whether it be bosses or whatever. I love when they do that. One of my favorite characters in DFO is actually the witch, because she's a character that has a whole lot of character built into it. She has a lot of these animations that are so over the top. And with this boss fight, I kind of got the same feeling I kind of get with Witch, is that, man, it's very creative how they made some of these boss attacks. There are all these twin type attacks. It's so much better designed than those two bosses that you fight in Luke, who just kind of do similar attacks. No, these are combination attacks. They're doing wrestling moves on you. If they miss, they start doing wrestling moves on each other to start a little initial groggy phase. It is such a well-designed boss, and it's very unique, and my favorite boss of the entire raid, to be honest. And the last thing that I really like about this raid, guys, is the triple party groggy with the damage markers on Sirocco herself. I think this is something that we have done once in the past before, and it was in Fiend Wars, except it was handled much, much worse, okay? In Fiend Wars, how it worked, you had two versions of the final boss, and you had to kill the final boss for your party. Otherwise, it would equalize the remaining HP between both parties. So, unfortunately, if one party was really strong and one was really weak, that one party might kill their Rosen, the other party might do 50%, and then both people after the groggy phase, would have one Rosen that has 25% left HP, which is, it's not a very intuitive way, because one party couldn't make up the damage that the other party lacked. Okay, they had to wait until after the groggy, and then they had to do another groggy. It just didn't really make much sense. In this way, how they've done it, basically they all go in at the same time into each their own instance, and then all of their damage, no matter how much extra damage they do, applies to the same boss. And it really does indicate that very well, how much damage each party is doing. And I think that is a proper way to do multiple people doing a groggy phase, okay? In Prey, you'll notice that in Prey, only one party could do damage to Prey at any one point in time. So you didn't even have multiple groggies. You only had one party that had to basically do all the work. I didn't like that either. Okay, I really do like how they've done it in Sirocco. They've kind of gotten the best of both worlds with Prey as well as Fiend Wars, where they have the outer parties basically buffing up the inner parties, and then once they're all ready to go, they all do the groggy. And I think that is so much better a way to handle the Sirocco final boss fight. And I think it kind of ties into my first point, where I feel like all of the parties have a role. There's not a lot of times where people are just AFK or they don't need to bother. People have a role and they have an involvement in taking down this apostle, and I think it's a lot better designed because of it. I hope that most raids will continue to pick up that trend, because I think that's a really good one. But with all of the good things out of the way, guys, let me start talking about what I kind of dislike about Sirocco raid. This is something that has plagued almost all of the raids that we've gotten in DFO, and there is no way to boom the raid. There's no way to intentionally fail it, which is so frustrating and so annoying. I don't understand really Neopol's rationale behind this idea. Okay, maybe they don't want to scam people out of raids, when really, dude, nobody wants to sit in a raid that they know is going to fail, okay? This is something that nobody wants to try to keep going in a raid that they know is going to fail. If even a couple people decide, well, we are going to fail, I'm just going to AFK, well, guess what? There's no way you're going to try to recover that raid. Just let us have an option to boom the raid. I do not understand why Neopol is so against this idea. You essentially have to just wait the timer out, which is so frustrating, because there's a lot of content in the game that they didn't feel the need to remove that option. You have Oculus, where you can just boom Oculus if you want to boom Oculus, man. Why don't they have that same logic applied to raids? Why do they force you to sit there and force you to keep trying, guys, you're going to get it? Well, let me tell you, this is some of the hardest content in the game. If you're not going to get it, you're not going to get it. So I don't understand why they don't allow you to boom the raid intentionally for whatever reason. I don't know. You're going to have to explain that to me in the comments, because they keep doing that, and I don't know why. Okay, and the only way to combat this is to basically don't fail raid. Okay, get good enough where booming the raid never becomes an option, and then it no longer becomes a problem. But as long as people are going into raids and they're not ready for it, there's no way to boom it intentionally, and that is just pitiful. If they're worried that a raid leader is going to abuse this and fucking scam people, hey, make a voting system. Put a voting system and say, okay, raid leader puts a vote. If we get majority vote, let us boom the raid. Something like that. I don't know. Dude, I can't believe we've gone this long without a means of being able to boom the raid intentionally. Next, guys, is how they've handled the reward system. They've kind of gone back to like the Anton days of DFO, where it was completely RNG based. And as far as I see now, guys, yes, the rewards in Sirocco are completely and utterly RNG based. Okay, there's nothing that you can get with the petals that you can get. The petals are kind of used as a currency to endow your gear. Basically, once you get the gear, you need to endow that gear onto your existing gear, and you need the petals for that. They're kind of used as a currency for that purpose, but the only other thing that you can do with the petals is buy RNG pots. And again, RNG pots are no different than just getting a dropped RNG. It's completely RNG based is what I'm getting at here, which is very frustrating because we've been in a couple level caps now where we've had this idea of farming your own best in slot gear sets, and we're coming into this raid where now they've kind of removed the option of doing that. You don't even have an option. You just got to deal with the RNG. And I can just imagine the horror stories people are going to have as they farm Sirocco raid for months and months and months and months and don't get anything that they want or anything that they can use on their character. It's scary. I do hope that eventually they release an option that's going to be guaranteed upgrades or guaranteed what you want. Yes, we do have the option for the quest, which gives you a free ditto piece, so you got one piece covered, but I'm talking, what about the weapon? What about the other pieces? It's a very frustrating type of system to know that we got to RNG some of these pieces. And like I said earlier, guys, I've done it 24 times, haven't even so much as seen a gold shine on any of my characters. I've seen quite a few of them on other people, but I've also been parts of many raids who haven't gotten a single gold shine in the entire raid. And there are 16 of us in that raid. So the RNG, it's got me a little scared. Some people, if you're lucky, that's how it goes, right? If you're lucky, you can get it. If not, you might get fucked. So I'm a little bit nervous on that front, but usually the RNG works itself out, but you never want to just rely on it. Next con, guys, is, dude, fuck the snake. Seriously, the snake is so stupid. And when I talk about snake, everybody really knows what I'm talking about, right? Okay, in Sirocco, there are 3 potential forms that she can take. One of them is like a beast form. And when you're in the beast form, you really you're going to be sweating. You're going to hope that the red party or whatever party's doing suppression can change the dungeon so that it's anything but the beast. Because what happens is that after a while, you know, it's kind of easy to dodge at first, but after a while, the snake will do this gimmick attack, which will force you to mind control one of your own teammates. So basically take control of one of your teammates' characters. And the problem with that is not necessarily just taking over their body. That's no problem. The problem is when that happens, it is so effing laggy, dude. It is so delayed. I don't know if this is intentional by Neopol, but dude, like you are 2 second delay on moving with this character. It's absurdly laggy. Okay, and so everybody dies on this phase. You know, you might want to use the slow-mo during this phase in particular because, dude, trying to get into position, trying to jump over gimmicks, trying to hit the boss or control the character at all, it looks like you're just flopping your arms everywhere. You have no control over this laggy ass character. This gimmick is so trash because of that, and I think it was more suited for Korea where they had much better peer-to-peer. In the global server setting, this gimmick attack is just an instant wipe almost every time, and it's like you can't even really blame anybody at that point. You're just like, dude, this shit sucks. Alright guys, and the last thing I kind of want to complain about, guys, is although I really praise the slow-mo gimmick being added as a raid feature, I do think that there aren't enough slow-mo gimmicks to abuse. There's not a whole lot of things that you can use the slow-mo for aside from extending groggy durations. For the most part, guys, you don't necessarily need to use the slow-mo for most of these attacks. Yes, many of the attacks can be a little bit more helpful or clue you in a little bit better, but you don't really need it. There's probably 2 gimmicks that you absolutely need the slow-mo in. to be able to do properly. Otherwise, you're just going to boom it. But aside from that, you really don't need it. You can use it. Mostly, you have to use it to extend groggies because the groggies are a lot more short. So unfortunately, you don't have a lot of this like cool, like awesome things you can do. There is some helpful things you can do. There is some things that are integrated with the slow-mo system that are different when you use it in slow-mo and when you don't. But aside from, a very select few cases, you don't need to use it. And I wish they integrated it just a little bit more better. And that should, I think, summarize most everything all my opinions and all of what I can think of about Sirocco raid, guys. Like I said, I really like it as a raid. Overall, the pros definitely way outweigh the cons about the raid. Very minor cons in the grand scheme of things. I just really find it to be a really fun raid for everybody involved. I mentioned a little earlier, but it's really balanced in terms of, what the green and yellow party have to do. It almost felt like in almost every other raid, once the other teams got strong enough, the other parties could just AFK, these guys are strong, they're just going to carry the whole raid for us. Not the case, it's not the case like that in Sirocco, because you need all the parties to be working in unison. They don't necessarily have to be the same strength, but all the parties are actively doing stuff. There's not a whole lot of downtime. There's a lot of coordination, a lot of stuff like that. That's one thing I didn't mention. A lot of coordination. There's just a lot of things that I would like about this raid, and that is why, guys, my guide video for Sirocco raid is going to be my top 5 do's and don'ts of the raid. Okay, and I've done the raid 24 times. I've done a lot of things right. I've definitely done a lot of things wrong, and I want to try to cover all of what you should and should not do in a raid. And hopefully that will make you a little bit more confident if you're kind of on the edge about whether or not you want to do the raid. Hopefully that'll make you a little bit more confident on what you should and shouldn't do to piss everybody off and get you potentially blacklisted like some people might have when I was fucking around. Alrighty, guys, next topic that I want to talk about is the Black Friday sales, okay? It's something that's relevant, that's very relevant to what's going on right now. That is something, an update we just got. It's Black Friday 2020, Part 1. Want to talk about it because there are a lot of items, you might be questioning, okay? Black Friday is always a situation where most people who don't cash finally feel the need, like, hey, they feel the pressure, right? They feel like, dude, these sales are good. Rick, what do you think about these sales? Are they worth cashing for? Let me tell you my opinions, at least with the Black Friday Part 1, okay? I'm very lackluster on the sales right now with the Black Friday sales. And again, this is Part 1 of 2, but the reason why I'm not just jumping on the ball and telling everybody, yo, dude, spend, you gotta spend, is that, we're obviously gonna get Part 2, but aside from that, guys, we're actually gonna be getting another package, okay? The Elemental Heroes package is something that we have been going on for several months now, and we're gonna be getting another package basically at the start of Part 2 of the Black Friday sales. And because I felt like the Elemental Heroes package has been a little bit lackluster, I do feel like it's a smarter idea to wait until that new package comes out before you start committing too much money in this Part 1. There's a lot of potential things that you might like. For instance, in 2019, we had a lot of costumes that were for sale, a lot of different packages. Arad Restaurant package, Welcome to Harlem package, the Arad cosplay, Heroes of Ethos, White Beast, Mythology of Aegis, any of these packages that you might have wanted in the past, go check out the Black Friday sales page. They're selling them again. So 2019 avatars are making a reappearance. Unfortunately, I know a lot of people are waiting for avatars that are older than just 2019, but if you missed out on any of those packages, I think some of those are really, really good. For instance, Arad cosplay and Heroes of Ethos, Mythology of Egypt. Those are really good packages. My only tip on that is the Welcome to Harlem package. If you like any of those costumes there, they can't be dyed. Don't ask me why. Hitler was probably involved. But anyway, those are pretty cheap at $13. I think those are worth it. Obviously, if you feel like any of those are going to be worth your while, you can definitely get those right now, and they're definitely worth it. The ones that most people are going to be thinking about, though, are the best items that are on sale. Those are the ones that are limited once per account. They're account-bound items, so they're going to be only limited to you. You can't go turn around and sell them. But what they are, Pandora's Amplification Box. What it has in it is a +10 amplification ticket, as well as an amplification protection ticket. Now, the one thing I want to mention about this, and the reason why I don't recommend it, because it is $30. This is $30 for a +10 amp ticket. The problem with the amp ticket is that the gear has to already be amplified, so it has to already be cursed for that +10 ticket to apply. If it's a regular gear, it's not going to apply the curse and then give it +10. No, it has to already be cursed. Essentially, what I feel like this item is a better description of is this item is a $30 attempt at a plus 11, okay? And if you fail that plus 11 attempt, or whenever you do fail it, you can use a plus 10 ticket to get you right back to where you were. So, you know, I already bought one just to kind of test it out, had a plus 10 amp gear, I failed it, and then guess what? After 30, clap 30, after I clap 30, I'm back to plus 10. So it's a $30 plus 11 attempt, and the second you fail, clap 30, okay? I think that is really, when you look at it in that perspective, I don't feel like it's really worth it. I think there are so many more things more important than plus 11 that you can spend $30 worth of Sarah on. I'm going to be honest with you. So Pandora's amplification box, I'm not really going to try to sell you on that one. That one is one of the weakest items on there. But then again, maybe you might have a plus 0 and you feel like you want to instantly get a plus 10. Hey, $30 for that also seems really expensive. So personally, not a big fan of Pandora's amplification box. The next item I do think is heavily worth it though is the golden amplification grimoire. And if you've never used a grimoire, how it works is you can get plus 8 to plus 12 amp regardless of its current reinforcement or amplification level. And not only that, it will be of the stat of your choosing. So essentially you can amp any piece of gear that you have, take it all the way up to at least plus 8 up to plus 12 instantaneously, and be the stat of your choosing. And it's only $18. This item is god tier. It's really good. Anytime they have it for sale, I think it's worthwhile. But you got to be really smart on how you use the amplification grimoire, okay, guys? Because in 100 cap, it's really easy to get amplification levels. Remember, any epic gear that you get, whether it be from Dawning Crevice or from Guide of Wisdom 2+2, it has a chance of being cursed when it drops. And if it's cursed, you can transfer that curse onto your gear, and there you go. You can start amping. Okay, the grimoire is used mostly on gear that isn't cursed already, and you want to apply the curse as well as a high level of amplification. And my suggestion is weapons. Weapons only. You want to focus on weapons because, like I said, generally you can use gear that drops, and if it's cursed, you can apply that onto any other gear of the same slot. But the problem is weapons, they're the same slot, but they have to be the same type of weapon as well. So if you have a cross and it's not cursed already, you can only get a cursed cross to drop before you can apply that onto your cross, which is very, very rare, right? It's not like I can get any cursed weapon and apply that onto my gear. No, it has to be a cross if I have a cross. So the weapon is the #1 premier slot that I would use the grimoire on. Just remember, dude, okay, amping your weapon only applies to buffer type characters first and foremost, okay, because they don't really need any damage stats. Or you can also use it on your fixed damage characters because remember, reinforcing your weapon actually doesn't improve their damage at all. You can freely amplify your weapon on a fixed damage character or a Crusader, and I highly recommend this as an item to buy. The next item I really highly recommend to buy if you need it, okay, this is kind of if you need it scenario. The one-shot vault upgrade is extremely efficient. It's $13 worth. It's something that, dude, it's saving you so much money. If you were to get maximum safe upgrade manually by normally buying every upgrade that you potentially can, it's gonna run you a ton of money. I'm not really sure, I haven't done the math, but let me just tell you, $13 to get that option for you, get it. Okay, if you don't have a character that has it, generally I would put it on a character who you are farming epics on and you have a ton of epics and you want to save all those epics, or on a character who, you know, you just want to consolidate all your items on. Or one issue I'm having is that I'm opening these pots from the Spirit Heaven dungeon, which is giving me a lot of weapon skins. That's another potential character you can use a one-shot vault upgrade to give your character a maximum level safe. Definitely worth. And lastly, guys, the last item that you can get is the BF 2020 Bonanza box. Essentially, it's $53, but you basically get all of the other previously mentioned items inside of it, and it is a little bit prorated so that it is a little bit cheaper than buying each item individually, but you can also buy this additionally on top of buying the other 3. So it's essentially, if you need all 3 items, this is the best deal. But again, because, you know, it costs $53 mostly because the Pandora's amplification box costs $30. So if you don't really want to spend that much money, I don't blame you. Just get the Golden Grimoire and the one-shot vault upgrade as individual purchases. But, I mean, hell, it's all up to you on that sale. But like I said, maybe it might be worth it to save, you know, $50 and just buy the new package that comes out, because there could be some very great sales there. By the way, we do know what the package is going to be. It is going to be the Advent of Apostles package, which this is something a lot of people have been waiting for. It basically gives you the costume of an apostle. But everything in terms of all of the additional items, we don't know the creature, we don't know if there's a title, an aura, we don't know any details on that yet. So that's something, again, why I said, hey, wait a couple weeks for our part 2 of this Black Friday, because, you know, we don't know all the details. Maybe save some of your money. Don't have to get everything right away. But if you need these items, I definitely do think at least a couple of them are worthwhile. The other thing that came with the Black Friday sales, guys, is the advent, or the return, I should say, the infamous return of the Obsidian Lost Treasure. And how this works, basically, when you open up enough Lost Treasures, you can get yourself a free Obsidian Lost Treasure, and it can guarantee you one of the special prizes inside the Lost Treasure, but it costs 100 skeleton keys to open it, so it is super expensive to open it. But on top of getting the guaranteed Lost Treasure item, you also get some Lost Coins, which are an event currency that can get you other items guaranteed, such as selectable gold emblems, rare clone avatar, and probably most pivotal, something we've never seen before, is a level 100 epic transfer stone that can transfer your weapons or armors. Okay, so this is something that I'm basically going to tell you straight up. This is complete and utter whale bait. Basically, I do not recommend this hardly at all. And if you're the type of person who does not care about money, then this is something that you obviously are going to look at regardless of what I tell you. But basically, this is not something that any person, normal person, should look at. And if you're the kind of person who's like, man, but I really want to transfer my epic, well, hey, dude, there is a transcendence system in the game you can use to get that as well. And I think that is a far, far easier method of transferring epics than trying to get 40 lost coins via this complete whale bait Obsidian Lost Treasure. But again, you do you, but I'm just going to tell you right now, it's not even worth mentioning because of how insane the RNG is. Basically RNG on top of RNG on top of RNG just to get something that is already a feature in the game. Hey, don't really, like, I'm not saying don't do the Lost Treasures. We do have new Lost Treasures, but the Obsidian Lost Treasures, boy, let me tell you, stay far away. Alrighty, guys, the last thing I want to talk about in this podcast, guys, is the Content Creator Program. Now, guys, for those of you guys who have been around or know a little bit about me, I have been a content creator for DFO since the game has been out. Since the very start of this game, I have made content for it, okay? PvE, PvP at one point in time, guide videos. I've just been there all this time, you know, all kinds of stuff I've tried to do in terms of content creation. And just recently, a couple months ago, I think they've had the Content Creator Program, which is kind of like an appreciation towards content creators and rewarding content creators for making content. There is a criteria you have to meet to be able to get the rewards, but essentially a couple videos if you're a content creator, like a video maker, you know, a couple streams, couple art pieces of artwork, basically any type of content that you can make, you get rewarded for it, which is awesome. Now, guys, overall, the Content Creator Program itself really hasn't affected me all that much, if I'm being honest. Yes, I am benefiting off of the prizes that they're giving every month, and it's really nice that they're acknowledging that, and I do have an avenue to talk to the GMs. I think that's kind of the coolest thing about the Content Creator Program. But aside from that, guys, you know, I was gonna make the content anyway. I have been making the content for a very, very long time before this program existed, and even if it didn't exist, I would be making content regardless. And that's kind of the one thing that I feel like is something that is a little bit wrong with the Content Creator Program, is that it kind of creates this divide between content creators and people who could potentially make content. It really is putting those guys who could potentially make content in a bad spot because maybe they don't feel like they should make content if they're not getting paid for it. And that's kind of the thing where it's like you're creating this situation where the people who make content and are official content creators are getting paid for it. Why would I bother making content if I'm not getting paid for it? Which is, it really is the wrong motivation you should have for making content. So I'm going to tell you guys right now, if you want to make content for this game, don't let the Content Creator Program hamstring you into thinking that you can only make it if you're an official content creator. I am living proof of that. I have made content for this game way long time before they even thought about having a system like this, and quite frankly the prizes are kind of small to begin with. So I'm just telling you right now, if you're passionate about DFO, if you want to make content for DFO, I saw a lot of people who were trying to make content during the time of the application process, and then they kind of just stopped immediately. I don't know why. Okay, hopefully you guys keep at making content if you guys are passionate about making content like I am. But to talk about the content creator program as a whole, I have to talk a little bit about my peers in the program. You know, we do have a lot of other people who are content creators, other video makers, other streamers, other artists, and they have been involved in making content for you guys as of late. And there has been, you know, I don't want to act like I haven't seen what's been going on lately. You know, I'm not walking around with blinders on my eyes. I do see what goes on. There is a little bit of that animosity, drama, whatever you call it, between some of the content creators and some of the community. And to be honest with you, this is bound to happen. This is bound to happen when people get put into this type of scenario, okay? Especially if they don't have a lot of experience. So I'm not going to act like I have just been ignoring it. Yes, stuff has been going on, drama. Trust me, I always avoid all the drama. But I do want to kind of address that because I do want to speak to both sides directly, just as a person who has just a little bit of experience in this kind of stuff, okay? First and foremost, let me address all of my content creator peers as well as aspiring content creators, okay? First and foremost, if you want to be a content creator, first, and I mean the very first thing you have to have, and if you don't have it, you need to develop it, is thick skin. Dude, it does not matter how skilled you are, how geared you are, how good you are at editing, how good your personality is, how nice of a guy you are. None of that shit matters. If you're the type of person that gets offended easily, gets emotional and or hyper self-conscious, then content creation honestly is the very last thing that I would suggest for you. You straight up, and I'm telling you, will not survive if you can't take some verbal, oftentimes personal assaults from people on a constant basis. It's really the price that you pay for putting your neck out there. Whenever there's content being made, there's always going to be a slew of critics that will come with it. And unfortunately, some people decide to handle that a little bit differently than others, okay? So I just want to address you guys directly. If you're aspiring to be a content creator or if you are one currently, remember there is a certain way to conduct yourself in the shitstorm that is public discourse, okay? Sometimes you might get legitimate criticism, and when you get that, you don't ever want to react defensively thinking that it's a personal attack, okay? And honestly, even if it is a personal attack, let it go, dude. Ignore it and don't take it personally. It's very simple, okay? Now, maybe you think that I don't understand the situation or I don't know what these content creators are going through, okay? Let it be known, I have gotten several hundreds times more shit slung in my direction, okay? From damn near this game's creation, I have been a topic of discussion. From the days of DFOG being on 4chan to the 37 pages of times that the name Rick has come up in the DFOG Discord, dude, I'd surmise that no less of 90% of the times that I have been mentioned are not painting your boy in a good light. And of that 90%, not even a tiny fraction of that has been anything that I'd figure to be constructive criticism. It's just been complete negativity. Oftentimes when I go to upload a video, whether it be on YouTube or trying to post it on Reddit, I will get instantaneously disliked. And hell, it doesn't even have to be me. Sometimes somebody might mention me or might mention some of my videos and they will get instantly disliked as well. It's kind of crazy. I got people who lurk on my stream waiting to catch me slipping so they could clip it and ship it off to their boys to laugh about it. Dude, there are entire guilds of people where I'm almost certain the requirement to get in is you've got to hate my guts. It's almost laughable. But despite this, never once in the 5 years that I've made content have I felt compelled to make a video about it or even mention it in passing, in comment form, in any sort of way. I've just very blissfully ignored all of it. And since this is the first time I've ever really acknowledged it, let me also mention that, you know, of the 37 pages of the times that I have been mentioned, most of that is coming from a very select few people. I'm talking no less than 20, 30 people who constantly have me on the mind. I'm living in their head, rent-free. It's nice and cozy in there, man. I've been there from the very start. And what it really has taught me is that there really is such a tiny difference between loving somebody and hating somebody. It's so close. It's hard to tell sometimes. Although I will mention, despite you guys constantly bringing me up and constantly thinking about me, every single time somebody says says Elven Knight, I'm pretty sure you guys are like, fucking Rick. But despite that, guys, I promise you that I have not so much as even uttered your guys' name even once, okay? I don't think about you very much because it's just not really worth it. Maybe I'd feel more compelled to think about it if this was the opinion of everybody every time I uploaded a video, but quite frankly, in the grand scheme of things, despite there being so much negativity out there, in the scope of things, it doesn't even make up a tiny percent of what my total viewers are, and I already acknowledge that I have a lot more positivity than negativity in the comments, and that's something that you content creators have got to realize, that yeah, there might be a few bad people out there who are trying to get under your skin, but there are so many more people that if they don't outright support you, then they passively support you as well, and that's something that I have obviously realized a long time ago. And the one thing that I will say that I do appreciate from you guys is that at least you guys don't harass me. I mean, you guys talk a lot of shit. You guys probably make a lot of jokes, crack a lot of jokes amongst each other, but at least I'm not getting harassed out here. So no harm, no foul as far as I'm concerned. Okay, now let me address the community as a whole, okay? For those of you guys who are consuming the content that the creators are putting out, okay? The one thing I gotta say to you guys, which I normally don't say anything to you guys, is you have got to be a little more lenient in the idea that content creation is an art, okay? You don't see people criticizing other people's art and telling people how to do their art. Content creation is an art. Just like the artwork that you see the artists create, making videos, making guides, even writing guides is an art. And it's something that you have to refine over time. You know, I didn't come out one day and just be, you know, really good and at commentary and doing editing and stuff. It's something I've developed over the years. And I really want you guys to understand that you can't just come out here and be really good at something. It will take time. It will take time getting into your own skin even. You know, people are different when they make content or when they're doing commentary because they are not comfortable yet. Okay, so you've got to give people that slack. Do not compare one content creator to another because it's just flat out not fair, and it's also not the same. They are not the same person and they don't treat content creation in the same way. Okay, think about it like this. For any of my guide videos, I write up a script. I don't give you guys my script and just call it good, okay? I take my script and I make a video out of it. It is something that I am creating on top of just giving you the raw data, okay? I'm not giving you the paste bin raw data. I'm making a piece of art for you to consume, okay? So keep that in mind. Content creation is always an art form. When you criticize art, you have to take that aspect into account. Yes, you can criticize the information that's in there, but don't criticize the method that it's being presented in. Unless, of course, you want to give constructive criticism, which is always fair. Just don't be negative about things that are relatively subjective, okay? Give constructive criticism, but try to be mindful that content creation is an art. So let me end with this, guys. I read this quote several years ago from my local newspaper, actually, and it was around the time where I was kind of starting up my YouTube channel, and I was a little bit, you know, naive, and I didn't know if I wanted to or not. It kind of went like this, okay, and it stuck with me ever since. Do not be afraid of criticism because, quite frankly, if you've never been criticized for anything, you've probably never done anything in your life worth criticizing. But anyway, guys, hopefully that little bit of wisdom has helped you, and hopefully you guys enjoyed the podcast today. So anyway, guys, thanks for watching, and I will catch you nights later.